It was a Sunday and we were just closing out of service and I was leaving the church. And as I stepped out of church, I could sense this voice within me say to me, this one leg in, one leg out you're doing, Tobi, it's not going to work. You better get in before it's too late. And it literally scared the hell out of me because I was wondering that if the door gets closed, then I don't get the opportunity. And then over time, I've processed it and I've thought about it that it just takes the mercy of God for one to catch or have such an experience. And that was really a turning point in my life. I literally jumped in. Hi everyone, my name is Tobi. I'm a mom of 2 boys, married to a tall handsome man. I graduated from Faithories University with engineering degree. I currently am a program manager. And I just love Jesus Christ.
So tell us a bit about your life before you came into the kingdom and you got to meet Jesus.
Well, I typically grew up in a very loving family. I'm an only child, FYI. And I can't really remember a time that I didn't feel loved. However, I felt like there was something missing in my life. And that was probably having a sibling or someone close to me like a sibling, not just my parents. I didn't have so many friends when I was younger, but I had cousins. I grew up with cousins. So before Christ, life was simple, straightforward, normal. I was a church girl. I went to church with my parents. My mom was Catholic. My dad went to a white garment church. We typically, if we're not at home, we'll be in church. We did all the church activities. But, like they say, until you have encountered Christ, you really do not know what it means to be a believer. I cannot really remember when exactly I gave my life to Christ, but I can remember when I rededicated my life to Christ. And luckily for me, that happened here in Dubai some years ago.
So what led to that point where you rededicated your life to Christ?
I felt like I was living a double standard life. I had one leg in the church and one leg out. So we'll go partying on Friday nights, we'll go clubbing with my friends from school. And on Sunday, we'll show up in church. Occasionally, that's if we don't sleep past the church time. And one day, there was a youth program on a Saturday morning that occasionally happened in my parish at that time, Grace Assembly, which was headed by Pastor Kinsley Chikunjindu. And he was preaching a message about Esther. And he was talking to, we were just singles and youths there in the gathering at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning, I won't forget. And he was talking about Mordecai and talking about Esther and their purpose and how the servant to the king that was close to Esther was a representative of the Holy Spirit or like a type of the Holy Spirit, and how he guided Esther to be that chosen one. And everything he was saying just caught my attention that I want to live a different life. Like there's more. There's obviously more. If Esther could have this entire experience and without our effort, she became a queen, and God just orchestrated everything and it worked together for our good. I wanted that, and that was the day I remember that I rededicated my life to Christ.
So what started happening in your life after you gave your life to Jesus?
I just remember a time in my life where it was a Sunday and we were just closing out of service and I was leaving the church. And as I stepped out of church, I could sense this voice within me say to me, this one leg in, one leg out you're doing, Tobi, it's not going to work. You better get in before it's too late. And it literally scared the hell out of me because I was wondering that if the door gets closed, then I don't get the opportunity. And then over time, I've processed it and I've thought about it that it just takes the mercy of God for one to catch or have such an experience. And that was really a turning point in my life. I literally jumped in. If you had met me at that time, you'd probably call me an SU. I was wearing the long skirts. I was wearing the scarves. I just wanted everything that had to do with Jesus. I wanted to know more about him, and I just wanted to give my entire life to him. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know the right steps to take. But luckily for me in the church, I had guidance, I had disciples to guide me through believers classes and other things that I needed to do to become a better Christian.
Are there experiences in your walk with God after then that you can vividly remember that characterized your relationship with God between then and now?
Oh, several actually. One that I remember vividly was in my parish then, and quite a lot of my encounters happened in my parish at that time. In my parish then, we had something we called Jericho Praise, and it was always an awesome time. It was like a Thanksgiving service we had every month. And that day, we're usually required to dance to the front of the altar, and we're having so much fun, especially the youths. And I remember that day kneeling in front of the altar asking for things because the pastor has asked us to ask for things, and God was like, I'm not giving you anything right now. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? And he further explained to me, he said, what have you done with everything that I've blessed you with so far? And I learned that as opposed God always giving us things, I believe that He has given us all that we need to be successful in life. And all we need to do is find those things, be fruitful, multiply, steward them properly, be faithful at what it is. Another one that I remember vividly was when, a lady is getting older, everyone is asking questions, until I is still single. And it didn't cross my mind at that time that it was an issue, that I was still single. But then I took the advice and I decided to pray about it and ask God, that's okay. I'm in my late 20s. God, what's going on? Are we going to settle this marriage issue? And He said to me, Tobi, you're self-centered and selfish. And it hit my heart like, what did I do wrong? Imagine hearing a father that you're used to loving and caring and just showering you with all that love and care, just say to you that you're selfish and self-centered. And I wasn't patient enough to further ask questions of what He meant by that. I asked a different question, God, what's up with marriage? And He answered me talking about a weakness or an area of my life that I needed to work on. So I took the comments that I heard in my spirit to my disciple or my mentor at that time. And she said to me, oh, that don't take it too hard. That what she feels that God was saying to me, considering that I grew up as an only child, I've always had my way. And I enjoy getting things done my way. So I thought about it some more. And I laid it before God. And I felt in my heart that it was the next step for me was actually to do something for others. So I started to serve. I was serving in the church. I was serving people. I remember that I started going to drop people at home after service. Rather than drop them at the metro station, I'll take them closer to their home, out of my own direction, just to do things consciously for others that didn't necessarily give me anything in return. And honestly, I think it was about 3 months to 6 months after that I met my husband.
Wow. How has the journey of marriage been?
Marriage, the school that never ends. To be honest, marriage has been up and down. I think it has the hill moments and the valley moments and mountaintop moments. But all in all, I think what I've learned through marriage is there is no other relationship in this life that will bring out the fruits of the Spirit of God from you, like love and patience, forgiveness, all the fruits of the Spirit from inside of you than the institute called marriage. Marriage is a beautiful thing created by God, but sometimes you can't just wonder, God, what are we doing here? What exactly is this about? So I feel when you're centered and you're focused on what the purpose of marriage is, you are able to deal with the rocky seasons in marriage.
Let's go out to talking about your walk with God, post you giving your life to Jesus, and trying to better yourselves with your character and everything. What is it did you start to see after God spoke to you and said, yes, you're a bit selfish and all of that? How did that change? What are the things that you started to notice about yourself as you walked with God going forward after that?
I noticed that it was easier to deal with things and accept weaknesses when we submit them. And then earlier on, I found the verse that says his strength is made perfect in our weaknesses. And I realized that more than the strengths, unlike, the world's perspective of these things, more than our victories and strength, what God really uses and needs is our weaknesses. And I'll give an example of Moses. It didn't matter that he stammered. God was willing to use that for his glory. And knowing that, I knew that I didn't have to be perfect. I knew that I didn't have to be completely prepared to step into whatever it is that God was calling me into in different seasons. Yes, there are times that I feel inadequate. There are times that I feel unqualified. However, I've learned over time that it's not just the result or the destination of what we're aiming at, but the process, because there's a newer version of me that will come out at the end of the process. So there's a becoming. And I've learned, over the years that with God, it's about the journey. It's about the things He's removing and the things that He's adding. And yes, we are very goal-oriented and result-oriented human beings, but with God, just stick to the course. You will see the beauty at the end of the tunnel.
So let me ask. I know that usually people like to talk about is a journey to becoming. Have there been any things that you've struggled with post giving your life to Jesus and being intentional about walking with God? Because like you said, it's in the journey, and sometimes until you get to a point where you die and probably meet the Lord, you know, there's some things that you see be working through and you're wrestling with and all. Do you have those kind of things in your life?
Absolutely. I've struggled with prayer life, consistency. I've struggled with quiet time. There are times that I miss out on it. I've struggled at being a wife. I've struggled being a daughter to my parents. I've struggled at work with being a certain level of excellence and adding value. I've struggled in church, in relationships with people. I can name several different areas of my life that I feel like I've fallen short in. But I feel like what has, cheered me on and carried me on is that God never leaves me or forsakes me. And none of these things that I've fallen short in or at will make Him love me any less. It wasn't because of any of these things that I could do well that He died on the cross for my sake. So as long as I have God on my side, I'm a work in progress. I will get there someday, probably when Christ comes back. But to say that, I'm perfect or I have everything figured out, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm learning day in and day out how to be a better mother, how to be a better wife, how to be a better employee, how to be a better friend. Yeah.
I know that you had a baby out of wedlock or while you were much younger. And I don't know whether this was before you gave your life to Jesus. What was your life like then, and how were you able to navigate that post giving your life to Jesus and all the things that come with new birth?
Ironically, I can remember that I could still hear the voice of God even though I had not given my life to Christ. I remember going for a revival around my house then. It was a Redeemed church, and I probably was 13, and I'm assuming that's the time I gave my life to Christ, not understanding what I was doing at that time. I got pregnant at 19 and had my first son at 20. Long story cut short. It was a life of a lot of ignorance. I was very shielded and sheltered as a kid, so I wasn't really exposed to the real world that when people say they love you, they don't necessarily love you. And people cannot give what they don't have. So my life before fully coming into Christ, when I rededicated my life and I fully understood what it meant to give my life to Christ, I feel like I was still conscious of God. I feel like He still communicated with me. Maybe I called it conscience, maybe I called it my mind, or something was talking to me, or I heard it through a movie and something just jumped at me, or something was highlighted I couldn't leave my mind, or I had a dream. It was always one instance or the other. But in the case of, journey through having a kid at 20 out of wedlock, I felt like there was a struggle. There was a struggle because I didn't really understand what I had done wrong. I just felt like I had an honest relationship with someone, got pregnant in process. I felt like I cared about that person. I didn't work out that way. And that was fine. But one changing part of that journey for me was hearing God say He has forgiven me. And it's probably what gave me the confidence to continue my life, because I know that such incidents more or less like derail a lot of women or men depending on the case. But in my case, I had a very supportive family, and I had literally just said, God, tell me, I've forgiven you, my daughter. And it just came to me like, if God can forgive me, I don't know who else I have offended apart from my parents in this world. And that probably started my journey to redemption. The church was not necessarily helpful because, of course, there are rules and laws and, tenets that you have to follow when it comes to the church. So I was suspended. The guy in question was suspended. There wasn't particularly any attention paid to us about our relationship with God, or, how we got to where we got to. So it was left to us to find salvation for ourselves. Luckily, God was merciful enough to stretch out His hand and save us Himself. Right? Another thing that I remember was I'd experienced different, but I would rather not call them men of God, that suggested I was okay to have an abortion. I just knew something inside me was wrong. That was just wrong. I won't say I heard God, but I just knew that it was bad enough that I committed the sin of fornication and then gotten pregnant. I don't think it was wise to add the sin of killing a child to it. So that's just like a rough idea of the things that I went through throughout the pregnancy to giving birth. And by the time the child came out, it was a new world for me. I was now a young mother, single mother with the support of my parents. I had not gone to university at that time. So after my son was 1 year old, I had to leave him with my parents and go to school. And that's how I found myself in a new country. Getting to this new country, it was an entirely different life. And I had to focus on my studies, even though every now and then I partied, because even before I got pregnant, I didn't even know what the inside of a club or alcohol tasted like. I didn't know anything about partying. I was as ignorant as a newborn baby. So I started to experiment things, alcohol, relationships, not having a goal in mind, just like, okay, everyone already assumes I'm promiscuous because I already have a child, so we might as well try whatever it is that they're saying out. Went down that road, and that was when I eventually found the church I was talking about earlier, where I rededicated my life to Christ.
How did you deal with the guilt of having a child at your early 20s and out of wedlock for that matter? And how did you deal with guilt that comes with failing yourself, failing God, failing your parents, and the conundrum that comes with all of that?
Luckily for me, I didn't have that guilt. And I think God probably shielded me from having that guilt. And I say this very carefully because I could sense his voice at that time. I heard him tell me he had forgiven me. I think what hurts me the most, or what made me feel guilty, was the pain that I was causing my parents through the incident. Um, and I think part of it had to do with my pure intentions with the person that I had the child with. Because honestly, if it was as responsible as or as straightforward as I was at that time, we probably would have ended up together. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, but I felt like I was dealing with a pure and open mind. So I didn't necessarily know what I did wrong. I just felt like I loved somebody with all of my heart, and it didn't work out.
So what does your life now looks like? Now you've been in board for a while. What has your experience been like now?
My relationship with God and my experience with God now, a couple of years down the line, is an ever evolving one. Every time I feel like we're starting KG1 all over again. There's so much depth in God that when you think you're cutting a grasp or a revelation of Him, you get sent back again to go and discover something completely new about Him. And for me, I find that quite interesting. It is something that I actually enjoy about my relationship with God, is the fact that you cannot exhaust it. It's worth searching out. It's like this treasure that you are digging to find. And every time you're digging, you are getting a taste of what you're heading towards. And it just gives you that snippet or that taste or that glimpse of what you're looking for. And that just refreshes you. You go for more, and refreshes you, and you go for more. So for me now, I would say it's beautiful, knowing the heart of the Father, knowing the love of God for me, being able to express that, in my relationship with my kids, my husband, and my friends, and then also share that, with the relationships that we have, get, an expression of God from them, and me sharing an expression of God with them.
Do you mind sharing one or two experiences that you've had now with God over the years that has struck out and has stood out to you?
Yes, there's one in particular. I remember we were in a Bible study and we were reading Titus 1, and there was a particular verse in Titus 1:2 that just hit me. And I feel like that verse completely shaped my perspective and my mindset when I'm, about the Bible, and now that I'm reading the Bible. And basically, the scripture said, a God that cannot lie. And it dawned on me. I'd heard it several times growing up. God cannot lie. It is impossible for God to lie. It's in Hebrews. We've read it. People say it jokingly. But I don't know what happened that day. I feel like God drew me in to actually see it from His perspective. And what that did for me was that every letter that I read in His Word now, and everything that He says, with that confidence, knowing that He cannot, not that He will not, not that He must not, it is impossible for Him to lie. I know that every word that comes out of His mouth is true. And because it's true, that's where my confidence comes from.
Who is Jesus to?
Lover of my soul. Jesus is God, is Lord, is Savior, is all those things and more. He's the one that feels every pain that I go through because He's been man like me. He's the one that stepped out of His realm to step into mine. to save me. He's the one that didn't look at me where I was and say to me, "Oh, we've tried our best." He's the one that ensured that he drew me closer to the Father. Is the way. He's my helper. You know, when I say lover of my soul, I'm not just saying it because of the song. I'm saying it because he really genuinely didn't want me to perish. And that's why he did all that he did on the cross for me. And he continually, intercedes on my behalf. I know that when the Father sees me, he sees Christ. And if he didn't pay all that price, if he didn't do all that he did, I don't know where I will be. I know my parents love me, and they've done everything in their power to support. But I feel like I wouldn't have become the woman that I am today, the mother of two great boys, or a wife. I don't think I would have been qualified. I don't think I'd have the peace of mind that I have right now. I don't think I would even understand what love is if Jesus didn't come into my life.